Hey there nation, welcome to the show. We help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another edition of the Underhive Wars. This is our series of Necromunda battle reports. It is a standoff scenario that is fought between my two friends, Lady Domina of the Killjoys from House Escher versus my other friend Warlord Ace of 911 of House Van Saar. So that's right, ladies and gentlemen, both these gangs will be throwing it down in the Underhive in a standoff scenario, kind of a good old-fashioned gang fight. We're now in the middle of our fourth cycle for our campaign, so we're going to see exactly how these two gangs kind of throw it down. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what each of the gang lists are bringing, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this on. Alright, so with the army list over with, let's go and talk about the scenario rules real quick. As you can see, my friends are fighting on a 4x4 table. If this looks kind of familiar, it's because in last week's videos, what we did is we actually took a 4x6 table and kind of cut it in half so that way both my friends could play one campaign right after the other, because my friends got together and just want to do back-to-back games real quick. So let's go and talk about the scenario rules real fast. So first of all, the winner gets D3 times 10 creds, go to the winner for the scenario, and you also get 1 XP for surviving for each of the gang members that manage to survive this battle as well. You also get 1 additional experience point for the winning gang leader as well, and for every out of action you put out for another enemy, you also get a +1 XP for that as well. You also earn 2 reputation points for the winning gang that wins this one, and you also get +1 reputation for fighting each other for the very first time. So since the first time that 911 and the Killjoys have thrown it down against each other, they both gain 1 reputation point. However, if you decide to ball it out on this one, you do lose that point of reputation, so there is that to keep in mind as well. So with the scenario rules over with, let's go take an overhead shot and talk about exactly what the battle looks like. Alright, so here's the overhead shot of the battlefield. As you can see, we have a gantry walkway on the left-hand side, as well as MCI Chemical Works buildings scattered throughout the center of the battlefield. As you can see, my friend Lady Domina is deployed on the near side of the table, while my other friend Warlord Ace is deployed on the far side of the table, and both their gangs are kind of laid out thusly. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's go and talk about the deployment area for each of the gangs real quick. Alright, so starting with the Killjoys over here on the left-hand flank, as you see there, it looks like we have a couple of gangers armed with last guns, as well as Mad Donna, who's armed with the heavy stubber. And you also have Trixie, I believe that's her name, that's the ganger up the front with the plasma pistol, as well as chain sword. I believe that's Mad Max there on the left-hand side, and right behind them, of course, is Raven, which is the gang champion as well. She's got a bolt gun as well as a chain sword. So that pretty much makes up the really fierce left-hand flank for the Killjoys. Meanwhile, in the center deployment area, the top of the MCI Chemical Works tower, right on the very top of the tower, that is Furia, the leader of the Killjoys. To her right-hand side is One Shot Blonde, which is a ganger armed with the last gun. To her left is Nocturna, who's another ganger armed with the last gun. Right behind her is Lucky Lucy, which is a ganger armed with the last gun, as well as a grenade launcher as well, packing both frag as well as crack grenades. And finally, make up the right-hand flank, you got 2 Juvies, that's Mimi the Punk as well as Marla the Hollow, and then right behind her you have another ganger, I believe that's gang champion actually, that's Yoko the Pyro, she's carrying her Nightshade Chem Thrower, and that pretty much makes up the Killjoys' right-hand flank. So with the deployment for the Van Saar for 911, over in the left-hand side you have Busta9, he's on the top of that walkway. Right in front of him is both Tugs as well as Souljacks. Those are 2 gangers armed with bolt guns as well, so a pretty heavy kind of looking assault squad here on the left-hand side. And in the center portion of the battlefield to the left-hand side, you have 3 more members of 911. It looks like you have your Moloko in the back there. That's a ganger armed with a flamer. That's also Chopper. That's another gang champion armed with a heavy stubber. And up front, I believe that is Mega Man. That is the Juvie's armed with a single stub gun. And that makes it the center left-hand deployment area. And finally, over here on the right-hand side as well, we have a few more gang members. I believe that's Tough Shakes. That's the gangers armed with a bolt pistol as well as a chain sword, as well as FNG. And I believe that is Nero on the right-hand side as well. I think he's packing a plasma gun. I think he's carrying on that character as well. And that pretty much makes up 911's right-hand flank. So with both gangs deployed now, both of my friends roll off for initiative to see exactly who goes first. So we go directly to the top of turn number 1. Alright, so with Lady Dama taking the initiative on this one, we go directly to the action phase. The very first thing, she activates her Juvie. That is Mimi the Punk, I believe. She actually moves up a double movement to the top of the MCI chemical tank farm there, making her way towards the 911 crew, kind of acting as a bullet magnet. So that way the members of the right-hand flank of 911 have to shoot at her and not the rest of the gang members from that point. In response to that, my buddy Warlord Ace then activates Busta-9 as well as Souljax and Tugs as well, and instead of actually using the Overseer ability from his characters, he actually moves up all three of those gang members up their normal moon allowance of 5 inches, getting closer down the walkway so that way they have a good line of sight and be able to target members of the Eschers are on the far end of the walkway. Because of that, all three gang members kind of open up with their bolt guns against the assault team from the Killjoys on the left-hand flank. So as you can see from this shot, basically pretty much Busta-9 managed to wound as well as put down Mad Max, causing her to go out of action as well. So because of that, Mad Max will need to roll up on the serious injury table after the scenario is over with to see exactly what happens to her. And because so many Killjoys were within close range of her getting taken out of action, all the gang members had to take a cool check to see if they panic and run. Luckily for Lady Domina, Mad Donna as well as Trixie stood their ground, but her gang champion Raven failed her cool check. As you can see that she kind of dropped down to the bottom of the walkway right where that pillar is in order to escape the field of fire that's coming her way. So first blood goes up to 911 on this one. So in response to that, Lady Dama then activates Furia, which is her gang leader. She also activates 3 of her fighters as well because she has the commanding presence rule. So because of that, she also activates Nocturno, One Shot Blonde, as well as Lucky Lucy. As you can see, all the gang members head to the left-hand side of the tower, start taking aim with some grenade launchers, as well as last guns and bolt gun, and start putting some strafing fire from the right-hand side directly onto both Busta-9, as well as his gangers Tugs and Souljas. And as you can see in this photo, the 911 members caught a lot of help from that one. The very first character that went down was Tugs, I believe. He got hit with a bolt gun, so he got seriously injured in that part, so he's kind of laying down on the ground, kind of bleeding. The rest of the last gun shots missed. However, Lucky Lucy was very, very lucky, managed to fire, like her namesake says, I guess. She took aim with her frag grenade from her grenade launcher and landed right directly into Busta-9, as well as Souljas, and was able to hit both of them at the same time. The result of the blast, as you can see, pushed back both Busta-9 as well as Souljax away from 1 inch backwards because of the knockback rules and the frag grenades. They both managed to survive their initiative checks too, so they both fell off the side. However, Souljax got seriously injured and Busta-9 was left pretty much unscathed on that part. And that pretty much makes the shooting on this side of the table. Pretty much for the rest of the action phase is pretty much how it works at this point. It's pretty uneventful. First of all, not to be outdone by the killers in pink, my buddy Warlord Ace kind of activates all of his fighters. He sends Moloko over to the right-hand side to the MCI Chemical Work office building at the base of that building, get ready to climb across it to get on that walkway to get onto the elevated walkway that all the action is taking place on the left-hand side. At the same time, he also spends a double movement on Mega Man to get the top of the MCI Chemical Work tower there on top of that little chemical tank, so that way he can draw some fire, allowing the rest of his gang to move. And at the same time, Chopper also runs over to the left-hand side of that tank, get ready to put some overfueled fire directly onto the Killjoys in the center of the table. Meanwhile, over here on the right-hand side, F&G manages to make a double move forward, get on top of that chemical tank right there for the MCI Chemical Work Tank Tower that's over there on the right-hand side. He also has moves up Tough Shakes as well as Nero as well to give some kind of backup as well, so that way they can kind of engage their opponents at distance at a later time. Meanwhile, at the same time on the right-hand flank, the Killjoys, Lady Dawn decides to move up Marlo the Hollow to kind of support Mimi the Punk as she walks across that little walkway there on the top, and she also sends Yoko the Power to kind of flank her on the right-hand side of the MCI Chemical Work Tower, so that way she gets closer with her Chem launcher and causing some harm that way on the right-hand side of the 911. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side, she sends up Trixie. As you can see, she does a double movement in the top of the second walkway of the double-decker walkway on the left-hand side, so that way she can start engaging some fire with her last gun as well as her plasma pistol against the members of 911. And she also moves up Mad Dawn as well to kind of lend some support. So with the action phase over with, we go directly to the end phase. Alright, so starting off with the Killjoys, you can see Raven managed to get back her nerve. She made a successful cool check, so because of that, she automatically rallies around. So she turns around, getting ready to go forward during the next action phase. At the same time, both Souljax and Tugs managed to get back on their feet with only flesh wounds, and they recovered from their serious injuries, so now they're back on their feet. They do have one less toughness, which will make them easier to wound, but at the same time, though, these guys can also still be active and still can shoot, so that's kind of important for 911 as well. So here's an overhead shot of the table after turn number 1, so that way you get a good idea what's going on. As you can see, the Killjoys are pushing on both flanks, both on the left-hand side as well as the right-hand side, trying to take on the assaulting elements on both flanks as well from 911. At the same time, the Killjoys are moving her forces for Lady Domina on the top of the MCI Chemical Work Tower, landing some long-range firepower on that side. At the same time, 911 is also pushing heavily on the right-hand flank as well as the center, and as you can see, both these gangs are kind of meeting in the middle to kind of throw down. So with that being said, turn number 1 is over with, so we go up to top of turn number 2 and we roll for initiative to see who goes first. Alright, Lady Domina did manage to steal the initiative on the second turn, so because of that she activates Trixie and actually has her charge across the walkway directly into Tugs. So because of that, Trixie and Tugs will be engaged in close combat, and we go directly to the next part of the action phase of them fighting it out. And as you can see in this photo, Trixie had no problem taking out Tugs for that most part. She basically took her plasma pistol, stuck in his face, and pulled the trigger, managed to put that guy directly out of action. She does a quick 3-inch follow-up move, but unfortunately for her, she was just an inch shy away from ready to close in with Soul Jacks as well, getting engaged in close combat, which could be pretty deadly for Lady Domina, especially if my buddy Warlord Ace decides to activate the shooting for these gangers in order to take her down. And that's exactly what happens, as you can see in this next phase from 9/11. He first starts off with Soul Jacks, but as impossible as it may sound, Soul Jacks actually missed with his bolt gun and manages to not hit anything at all when he actually missed his shots in that part. So it took Busted Knight to take aim with his bolt gun and actually hit. And not only did he manage to hit Trixie, he also caused a wound and also caused a guard of action as well. So because of that, Trixie will need to go roll off on the serious injury table at the end of this scenario to see exactly what happens to her. And right off the bat, the Killjoys are now down 2 fighters in the second turn of this battle report. So in retaliation, Lady Domina does send out Mad Donna up to the second level of the walkway and have her up and up with her heavy stubber, but unfortunately for her though, she actually missed all of her shots, and so because of that, she's now directly down the barrel length, looking down the sights against the members of 9/11, so that could be pretty bad as well. Alright, so with that being said, we go directly across the battlefield for 9/11. As you can see, my buddy Warlord Ace decided to activate Nero as well as F and G. So because of that, the Juvie as well as the gang champion get to open up against the 2 members of the gang over here on the right hand side for the Killjoys. Alright, so with that being said, as you can see here, for the most part, FNG missed both his shots when he opened with both of his stub guns, and they just kind of flew wild, wasn't pretty much able to hit anything. However, Nero, on the other hand, he managed to take aim with his plasma gun, and since he has the fast shot special ability, he treats shooting as a simple action. So because of that, he can actually shoot twice in the action phase, and that's exactly what he does. First of all, he hits Mimi the Punk, manages to wound her, also put her into a serious injury as well, and also managed to hit Marla the Hollow as well, also putting her in serious injury as well. So both these ladies, all they can really do is crawl around for 2 inches and pretty much bleed until they get to the recovery phase to see if they can get back on their feet again. So right now, the right-hand flank of the Killjoys is slowly collapsing. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side of the table, Lady Domina does activate her champion Raven. Actually has her spin a double action movement, doing a double movement, walking down that elevated walkway, trying to lend some support to her ganger Mad Donna, who's carrying the heavy stubber. Warlord Ace then activates Chomper, who moves a couple inches over to the right-hand side, so that way he has a clear line of shot with his heavy stubber against the Killjoys on the top of the center tower for the MCI Chemical Works, and he actually cuts loose with his heavy stubber. And at the same time, manages to take down One-Shot Blonde as well. So because that, she's seriously injured, so she can do pretty much nothing until the recovery phase. And we see she either goes out of action or suffers a flesh wound. So things are definitely not looking very good for the Killjoys at this point. So in response to that, Lady Domina then activates Furia, who using her commanding presence ability to activate both Nocturna as well as Lucky Lucy. And the very first thing that she does, she actually has Furia as well as Nocturna take aim with their long-range guns and start opening up on Mega Man, who's at the top of the MCI Chemical Work tank farm right across the street from them. And the reason why is because in Necromunda you have to actually aim for the closest target to them, and that guy's the closest one at this point. Unfortunately for Lady Domina, Nocturna missed her shot, but Furia also did manage to hit, F&G on the top of the chemical tower, but unfortunately was unable to wound him in that part. Luckily for Warlord Ace, he did manage to pass his initiative test on Mega Man, so that way it didn't fall off the top of that chemical work tower. So because Mega Man is now done, it means that they can start targeting other members of the gang now, because those guys are within range and they're also the closest targets to them. Which then allows Lucky Lucy to take aim with a grenade launcher and fire a frag grenade, and she hits a direct hit right on top of both Nero as well as FNG as well. So talk about a 1 in a million shot. Lucky Lucy is living up to her namesake, lining 2 perfectly long distance shots with her grenade launcher. Lucky Lucy does put a serious injury onto FNG, so because of that, all he can do is lay around and bleed until we get to the recovery phase. Nero, on the other hand, remained unscathed, but because of the knockback ability from the frag grenade blast, he goes back an inch from the back of that chemical work tower, and same thing with FNG. So because of that, that pretty much makes the Killjoys' turn. So in response to that, the Warlord Ace then activates Tough Shakes. And as you see, he moves up his ganger right to the top of that MCI Chemical little tank right there, takes aim with his bolt gun, and actually pulls a shot off onto Yoko the Pyro, who's coming around from the right-hand flank. And not only does that little psychopath with the bolt pistol manage to hit Yoko the Pyro, he also managed to put the 2 wounds on her with his bolt gun and also cause her a serious injury as well. So she will need to roll up on the recovery table to see exactly what happens to her as well during the recovery phase. And lastly, the last member of 911, Moloko, he spends a turn moving a double move forward, climbing to the top of that third floor of the MCI Chemical Work office building, right where that walkway is, so that way you can cross that walkway and get to the elevated double-decker walkway on the left-hand flank. Alright, so in the end phase, starting off with the Killjoys, as you can see right there, one-shot Blonde is still serious injured, so all she can really do is just kind of lay there and bleed until the next recovery phase for the next turn. On the right hand side, as you can see here, Mara the Hollow as well as Yoko the Pyro both get back on their feet again with some flesh wounds, so because of that, they will be a little bit easier to wound, but they can still move around, they also can still fight at the same time. However, maybe the Punk, she's still kind of laying on the ground bleeding out because of her serious injury roll. And lastly, FNG gets back on his feet again with a flesh wound as well. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that ends turn number 2. We go directly to the top of turn number 3, and we roll for initiative to see exactly who goes first. Alright, so House Van Saar manages to go first for this action phase. So you can see in this photo, the very first thing that my buddy Warlord Ace does is he activates his leader, which is Bustin 9, and he not only does he activate his leader, but also activates Souljax as well. But what he decides to do is he uses his Overlord ability from his leader, which means that he picks another Van Saar unit within range, and that guy can take twice as many actions for the action turn. So what he decides to do is activate Moloko, which is the gang that's carrying a heavy flamer. So the very first thing that Moloko does, he spends one of his action turns getting to the top of that walkway from the MCI Chemical Work towers, and he spends his next his next 2 actions, taking aim with his heavy flamer and opening it up onto Mad Donna with a huge sheet of flamethrower fire, which is absolutely devastating to look at. And as you can see in this photo, managed to put that poor lady out of action as well, so because that Mad Donna will need to roll up on the serious injury table to see exactly what happens to her at the end of the battle report. And because Warlord Ace also activated, used his entire action using his commanding presence ability, my Warlord Ace then activates, Souljax. He does move forward in order to line some long-range shot with his bolt guns against the Killjoys on the top of the center tower, but unfortunately for him, though, he wasn't able to cause any wounds or injuries at that point. He just missed all of his shots at that point, so that was pretty sad for him. Meanwhile, over here in the right-hand flank, Lady Dama activates Yoko the Pyro as well as Marlo the Hollow. They move up forward in order to take some shots at Tough Shakes, but unfortunately for Lady Dama, Yoko the Pyro is out of range to use her Kim Thrower. At the same time, though, maybe the Marlo the Hollow does take aim with her last pistol and tries to shoot at Tough Shakes, but unfortunately for her, though, she missed her shot. So because of that, pretty uneventful action here on the right-hand flank. And once again, Warlord Ace also activates Chopper to have him open up some suppressive fire with his stub gun, but unfortunately for him, though, he wasn't able to hit his marks at all, so because of that, his action is kind of like a waste this turn. And unfortunately, the same exact thing happens for Lady Domina. She activates her gang leader Furia, as well as Nocturna, as well as Lucky Lucy, but unfortunately, all 3 of these ladies managed to miss their shots, and so because of that, they really don't much do of anything as well this turn, so that was kind of sad as well. Meanwhile, over here on the right-hand flank, Warlord Ace activates Nero, his gang champion, as well as FNG. They climb to the top of the Chemical Work Tower, and since because Nero has that fast shot ability, he takes aim with his plasma gun, actually opens up on both Marlo the Hollow as well as Yoko the Pyro. And unfortunately for Lady Domina, he managed to hit both of those ladies as well as wound both of them and put both of them into serious injury status as well. So because they're both laying on the ground kind of bleeding out again, they will need to wait to the end phase to see exactly what happens to them. And that pretty much rounds up the phase for turn number 3. So with that being said, we go directly to the end phase. And with so many fighters out of action or laying down the ground bleeding to death, Lady Domina does have to take a bottle check. As you can see from the little exclamation point from the artillery die, she failed her bottle check for her gang leader on this one. Which incidentally takes at the end of the game as well, because the Killjoys decided to bottle out on this one as well. Lady Dama didn't want to lose any more of her gang leaders to 9/11 fire, so because of that, she kind of calls the game early, and that nets a victory for 9/11 for House Van Saar. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the after-action report to the post-game and talk exactly what happened to each of the gangs in the post-game section. Alright, so let's talk about the post-game for the Killjoy. Starting off with injuries. So Lady Dama had a roll of injuries for 3 members of her gang, that is Mad Max, Trixie, as well as Mad Donna. Mad Max and Trixie rolled out cold abilities, so because of they will be just fine, they get to participate in the next battle report. However, Mad Donna rolled a grievous injury, so she'll be out of turn as she tries to recover from this as well. For advancements, none of the members of the Killjoys advanced. For reputation, they did earn 1 point reputation fighting against 9/11 for the very first time, but because they bottled out, they lost that reputation point as well, which brings their total points for reputation up to 2 points as well. As well for their turf, they didn't really gain any turf or lost any turf as well. For the merchant, they did manage to raise up 90 creds from their territories. Because that they spent those 90 creds on hiring a new ganger named Holy Havoc. She's armed with a last gun as well as frag grenades, and they took the 5 remaining creds they had and put it back into their stash. Their new gang rating now is at 1,580 points, and the new record is at 2 wins as well as 2 losses. Meanwhile, for 9/11, they only had one injury, which was this ganger named Tugs. He got out cold, so because of that, he will be able to participate in the next battle report as well. For advancements, actually 3 members of the gang actually leveled up. Busted9 leveled up twice, getting up to level 3. He learned the fast shot skill as well as earned 1 to his cool as well. So now this guy is definitely a tougher character. He's braver, he's tougher, and he also can shoot multiple times in the shooting phase, which makes him extremely deadly. Up next came Moloko. He promoted himself up to level 2 as well. Got +1 to his cool, so he's a little bit harder to break. And Mega Man also leveled to level 2 as well, getting +1 to his ballistic skill, which makes him a little bit deadlier for Juvie. Now, as for the reputation, 9/11 did gain 2 points of reputation for winning the scenario. They also got +1 reputation for fighting against the Killjoys for the very first time as well. And because there's over 100 points of difference between both gangs, they also received another point of reputation for the different gang ratings. That actually brings them up to a total of 4 reputation, and it gives them a grand total of 5 reputation as total. So because of these guys came up really quick from the bottom of the league up to kind of like the center, so things are looking pretty good for 9/11 at this point. For their turf, they also managed to steal a piece of turf as well, bringing their total number of turf territories to 3 pieces of territory. At the merchant, they managed to raise a total of 140 credits. So this is also combined with the 20 credits they got in their stash for a grand total of 160 credits. They took those 160 credits and they hired a new ganger named Turop, he's armed with a bolt gun, as well as hiring a new Juvie named Rundog, who's armed with twin stub guns as well. They also purchased a Medicaid kit for Busted9 so that we could use that to cure any injuries later on. Their new gang rating now is at 1,535 points, and their new record is at 3 wins as well as 1 loss. So that's good to do it for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to comment, like, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Google+, as well as blogger.com for all the latest and greatest of what our hobby is. So, you guys stay classy. We will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.